Hi, my name is Gumi and I am an engineer at Nox Medical. For this tutorial I'm using Noxturnal version 3.0. Today I will show you how you can create your own signal layouts. Signal layouts are the way that you represent data when you're scoring or reviewing a recording. So to begin with, when I want to create a layout, I simply open up a recording that I want to use to generate my layout. It's important that the recording that you select includes all the signals that you want to view in your layout. But don't worry, because you can always modify your layouts or create layouts with different arrangement of signals in them. So you're not limited to one layout, you can create as many layouts as you want. So in this case I'll open up this recording, which is just a standard Noxturnal recording. You can see here, if I select Add Sheet, that we have an empty signal sheet and we got all signals. So these are like stock layouts or default layouts that we supply. One is to create just a blank canvas, and the other one is to create a canvas where you include all the signals. Then we got our own stock signal layouts, signal sheets. One is respiratory, one is pulse oximeter, and the final one is apnea screen pro, which is for backward compatibility. So when you've opened up a recording, you see these extra tabs here. One is called pulse oximeter, the other one is respiratory. These are sheet layouts or layouts of the data for you to review. These layouts are just a suggestion to how you can view the data. There are no holy grails in this. It's just a default view that we, the developers, thought would be useful for you to have when you're scoring the data. Okay. To create your own layout or modify an existing layout, you simply go into Add Sheet and select Empty Signal Sheet if you want to start from scratch, or you can select an existing sheet like respiratory or pulse oximeter if you want to use that as your starting point. Okay. So in this case, I will just create a layout from scratch. Okay. I select an empty sheet, and then I have to think about what am I going to view in this sheet here. What's the purpose of the sheet? So in this case, I wanted to include the oximeter data, the activity data, and I wanted to include the belts and the rip flow. So that might be my view when I score and review the data. Okay. So on the right side we have got a tab here called Signals and Data. If you click on it, it expands and it shows you all available data. Okay. So I can click I want to view the abdomen data, I want to view the activity. I don't want the elevation or anything like that. I don't want the flow. I will take the pulse, I will take the rip flow and the rip phase and the rip sum. I'll take the SpO2 and I'll take the thorax. So these will be the signals I'm going to view in this layout. Okay, so now you see I got all my signals here, and now I can arrange them any way I want. For example, I want to group together the abdomen and thorax because those really go together, and you can see if you have them grouped, you can see if they are in phase and things like that. So I right click on this signal and I say I want to group signals of same type. That means that it takes the signals that are of same types, in this case the belts, and groups them together. So I select this option. Now you see that the belts are in the same group. Maybe I want to take it up to 5 minutes because that's like a default view for me when I score data. You can see that the thorax and abdomen are joined into one group, and when I scale it, you can see that both signals are being scaled, and the scale is the same for both signals. Okay, the next signal I have is the SPO2. So I can right click on that and go into properties. So now I have the properties for my SPO2 signal. So I want to have my axis go from 110% because I want to show the values, which means I need to have a little bit of a space on top. And I will go down to 70%. I will not scale the signal when I scale everything else. So I click here. I want to show the axis, and I want it to be a little bit bigger, like 60 pixels. Note that my screen resolutions for this demo is quite low, so everything seems to be very cramped, but you usually run this on a bigger screen, so you won't have the same problems I have here when I'm showing you this this demo. Again, auto-decimals here tells you how many decimals you want to include in your signal. I don't want it to be automatic. I want to take this off and have 0 decimal places. The magnitude tells us what is the basic unit that you use when you are representing the signal. You can have it in kilo or milli. I'll just not select this option at all. From 110 down to 70. I select the signal tab here. I want to clip the signal, so if it goes outside of my range, it will get cut off, and I want to show the values. Okay. The other things here is draw a step plot. Step plot is very useful when you have a very slow sampling rate signal. Then it will sample and hold the signal, so it doesn't draw a line between the points. It simply takes the value and it draws that value for the entire sampling interval. It's a pretty advanced feature, but you normally just use it when there are very low sampling rate signals. Fill plot. It basically fills the area under the curve. I can show you how it works. So now I can apply the settings that I already made. I select apply, and you can see here in the background that I am showing the saturation values. Fill plot, I can select this and select apply. So you can see that the area under the curve gets filled up here. So we fill up the area under the curve. I don't want that for my sheet, so I just uncheck that and apply these changes. So now I have my oxygen saturation going from 110 to 70. So I'm quite happy with this. And it also does not scale when I auto scale everything. So it remains fixed unless I explicitly go in and change the axis by dragging it around or something like that. I don't want to do that, so I'll keep this as is. The rip sum, basically I just want to set it up the way I want. You can see that I can hover the cursor down here. It changes to an up and down arrow. This means I can resize my panel here. It's the same thing as right clicking, going into properties and entering a axis height here. Okay. Normally when you're doing these layouts, I recommend that you really go into the properties and set your exact values. For example, for the rip phase, in this case, I want to go into the properties of the signal. I can do that also by double clicking on it. And I want my axis to go from 180, which is the maximum value for the phase, down to 0. I want the auto decimals just to be 0 fixed, and I want it maybe to have a 60 pixel height as well. The signal, I want to clip the signal. I don't want to show the values, and I want to fill this plot, and I want to change the color to like blue. So now you can see that my plot is filled up here. Okay. So now I got my rip phase the way I want it. The rip flow, I simply scale that and put some double click to go into the properties. I put some scale just to have it equal on both sides, 150 minus 150 microvolts per second here. And everything here it is good. I also want to clip the signal. I don't want it to bleed over to other signals, and I can give it a color like, let's give it a green color. Okay, so now I have the flow. Again, for the pulse, a double click to get the properties. I want to go from 100 to 40, that's fine. I have 60 pixel height. I want to exclude it from the scaling. I don't want anyone to I don't want it to scale with the data when you do auto scale. Again, I want to clip the signal and I want to show the values. So go and apply. Make sure that auto decimals are off when you want to show, don't want to show any fractions, and do decimal places 0. Okay, so now I have a pulse value and I'm showing the values as well here. Let's say that I want to place my activity signal at the top. I don't want it to be at the bottom. So what I can do is I can go into the left side, into the label, and simply click and drag. So I can drag this signal to the top here. Like this. So now I have my activity on top. I want to double click my activity. I don't want it to be scaled from 1.5 to 0 gravity G's per second. So I'm good to go here. Okay, I apply this, say okay. One thing I forgot to do was for the RIP phase. I want to double click on that, and I also want to exclude that from scaling. It's good if you have a quantitative signals like the RIP phase, which is always from 0 to 180 degrees, or for the oximeter data or for the pulse data, which have these quantitative values like the percent for the SpO2 and beats per minute for the pulse. It's always good to exclude those signals from the scaling, because you always want the range to be the same for those signals. Okay, so in this case I have my 5 minutes in the window. I've got the signals the way I want it. Maybe I want to change the color of this signal here to some bright color like orange or something. So I got my activity as an orange signal here. And now I can save this setup for future use. Okay, what I do now is I can either right click on this tab here, right click and say save sheet layout as, or I can just simply go into into edit and select save sheet layout as. I click this option. It gives me a nice screenshot of the of my layout and allows me to add a name. Let's call this my layout. The option that you see in here allows you to insert this sheet automatically when you open a recording for the very first time. Okay, so for example, when you download a recording, if I check this option here, this layout sheet will be available for me as a tab immediately after the download. Okay, so save this. You see that the tab changed to my layout. If I go into add sheet now, you can see that there's a new entry here called my layout, and this is the layout I just created. So for example, let's close this layout here that I just used. You can see that now there are still just 2 tabs here, 2 layouts for the data, the respiratory and the pulse oximeter. So what I can do, I can go into add sheet, select my layout, and up pops my layout tab with the layout I just created. So now you have this layout. and later on you are not happy with it, so you might want to change something. For example, I want the thorax to be red and the abdomen to be green. Okay, so what I do then is I make my changes. I double click on the thorax signal to get the properties, select signals, and I make this one green. Okay, I double click the abdomen, go into signals, I make this signal red. Okay, so now you can see I have a green signal and a red signal for the abdomen and thorax. So now I want this to be the view I get every time I open up this layout. Let's make one other change. I want it to be 10 minutes, not 5 minutes. I want to score everything in 10-minute view. Okay, so now I've made all my changes. What I can do now is I can right click on the layout tab and select update saved layout. There is also another option here to revert to a saved layout, and that basically reverts back to the layout that you applied in the beginning, or to your saved layout. So if you made any changes, you can always revert back to the saved layout. I will show you how that works in a little bit, but now I just want to go into edit. I have to right click and select update saved layout. Now the changes I've made, making this a 10-minute view and a green and a red color for the rib belts, abdomen and thorax belts, now it's a part of my layout. So if I close this layout out now and select it again, my layout, you see that now I have 10 minutes and my abdomen and thorax signals are green and red. Also, if I, for example, make a lot of changes here, I want to go down to 2 minutes, drag this axis like this. Now you can see I've messed everything up. And I want to go back to my layout as it was before. There are two options here. You can either just close out this sheet and go into Add Sheet and add your layout back again. Or you can right click on this tab and revert to saved layout. That means that it reverts back to your original saved layout. Click this. Now I get back to my 10-minute view for the data. You can manage your layouts simply by going into Edit, Sheet Layouts. This gives you a list of all the layouts that are saved in the system. For example, the respiratory and the pulse oximeter, these are just standard layouts, just like any layout that you would create yourself. And you can remove them from the system, but note that when you start the program up again, all default layouts are populated again, so they basically never leave, or they never get deleted. So I scroll down here, and you can see that my layout is here. The one that I just created. You can delete it from the list if you want, simply by selecting delete. Delete, select OK. If I now go into Add Sheet, you can see that my layout is gone. But thankfully I still have all the settings I just made still in here, so I can go in and select Edit, Save Sheet Layout As, My Layout, Save, and you can see that my layout is still here. On top of all the properties that are assigned to signals, you can change the way that you view the entire signal sheet. So these are properties that you can access either by going into Edit, Sheet Properties, or right-clicking on your sheet and going into Properties. Here you can set the background color, the color of the axis line, which I will show you in a little bit, and if you want to show major grids and minor grids. So in this case I just want to change the back color to this beautiful blue color that is in here. Another option here is that you can change the default epoch duration, but since we are not doing a sleep scoring, this is not something that I want to change now. So I changed this to a beautiful light blue color. I select apply, and you can see that the back color has changed to a light blue. So with these options you can simulate most of other systems simply by changing the color scheme that you're using. Everything that you do in here can be saved as a part of the layout. For example, for the signals there are guides which we call axis lines. So if I right click here, I can select, let me see, let's try it on another signal, this one. So you can see there is something called an axis line here. So I can add an axis line. You can see this line that comes in here. You can see the value of the axis line simply by going over it. You can see that this axis line is set as 0.75 Gs per second. So you can put this, for example, if you want it to be at some level like 0.4 Gs, you can put this axis line as a guide for you. So now I made all these changes to the signal sheet, these guides for example as well. Then I want to go in and I can update my sheet. Sorry, I have to close this sheet here and set this sheet, my layout. Then I can add my guide here, add axis line. I can set it to a range and I can add multiple guides or axis lines if I want. And then I can right click and say update saved sheet layout like this. Now when I apply this layout again, you can see that my guides are also saved with the data, or with the layout, sorry. This applies to everything that you do to this sheet layout or data layout. If you apply filters on the data, the filters are saved as well with everything that's in the layout. So to summarize the creation of layouts, which I think are very important because no two persons wants to view the data the same way. So what you can do to create a layout, you simply can either start from an existing layout and make changes and then update your layout by clicking on the tab, selecting update save layout. Or you can create from scratch, layout from scratch by selecting add sheet, empty signal sheet. And then you can, on the right side, select which signals to include in your sheet. And then you can use the powerful UI in Noxturnal to drag and drop and change the scales of signals and to resize things. You can apply filters. I can set filter. For example, I can set a low pass filter at 1 Hz here for this signal. And you can set up your sheet within the UI the way you want, and then simply save that as a layout. Edit, save layout as, new layout, save. And now you can see I have my layout and my new layout. So you can create as many sheet layouts or data layouts as you want, and to add them, it's very simple. Add sheet, select the layout that you want to view, and you're done. So this has been an overview of the sheet layouts and how you can create a new sheet layout or create or modify an existing layout to suit your needs. So I hope this helps. Thank you.